I will go ahead and get started for this evening with the April announcements in case anyone needs a little refresher on these. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to share my screen. Perfect. All right. So again, thank y'all for being on this evening and for anyone who is watching this later. It is April the 9th today, and we are going to go over a couple of the announcements for April and our brand kit for our Zach Taylor agents. We have this announcements and brand kits that are released every single month for our agents and just kind of gets everybody on the same page with what's going on at Zach Taylor. We are throughout multiple different states, coming soon to more states. So be on the lookout for that information. But just to keep everybody in the loop together, we try to set out or send out information that goes over, the multitude of states that we have. We are growing. We've added 16 new agents to our team in March and doing a couple housekeeping items and updating, revamping things. So be on the lookout for those things whenever you get emails from Bailey or Zach regarding kind of updates for our offices. And we did win another award, first in real estate companies for the entire Southeast and fifth overall for Inc. regionals. So that is amazing for our office. And if you're in Tennessee and would like to use our priority title, which is our in-house title company, you can get a $2.99 credit towards your closing. So keep that in your mind when you have a deal upcoming. And Dim was our March recruiting contest winner. So congrats to her. Agent meetings. Yesterday we had our monthly agent meeting. We do this once a month on the first Tuesday of each month. Zach and Cameron usually lead this and go over our announcements. Usually has a training in there. I don't know if y'all were a part yesterday, but the Zoom call kept dropping. So I caught like the first 20, 30 minutes of it, but then I had to get off because it just kept dropping. So anyway, hopefully they'll get that all squared away. And if you did not join in yesterday, I would recommend you put it on your calendar for next month. I'm not sure the exact date, but it'll be the first Tuesday and at 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you're Eastern Time like me, this is 11 o'clock. You can join via Zoom, the same exact link that I send out for our meetings. You'll click that link for the monthly meeting as well. Here's some training classes we've got coming up in our Murfreesboro office. How to prospect leads like a pro. If you're not local to Murfreesboro, you can join via Zoom Thursday, April the 17th. Also have another training with Michael Dindy on April 22nd. I haven't figured out what this is about. So if you're interested in this, shoot Zach or Cameron or Bailey an email, and I'm sure they can explain what this training is going to go over. But again, any of our non-local to Murfreesboro agents can join via Zoom if you would like to. Chattanooga team meeting was April the 2nd. Their team meetings are also on Wednesdays like ours, except they're in the morning. Mastering your social media. They had that this morning, and I'm sure that Emily would send you the recording of it if you have any interest in rewatching any of these as well. Emily Berryman is our Chattanooga broker. Learn how to understand CRS, tax records, and GIS maps is going to be next Wednesday. Going over your first 90 days as a real estate agent on the 23rd, and then how to network as a real estate agent on the 30th. So if any of these classes sound interesting to you, feel free to join in. You don't have to only join into my classes. You can go to Zach's, Emily's, Cameron's, whoever's. This is our Georgia training classes. We like to do these every Wednesday evening at 5:30. And Tonight, we're going to go over commonly negotiated terms in a real estate transaction. Next week, we're going to go over all things Zach Taylor accounting with Mike, who is in charge of our accounting for Zach Taylor Real Estate. He'll be going over some good tips and tricks regarding how to get paid at closing, what your commission structures like, compensation structures like, all of those good things. So join in if you are able to next Wednesday. Then we're also going to have a guest speaker, if you'll say it, if I can say it that way, guest presenter, Don O'Shields. He's a home inspector local to the Atlanta area, West Georgia area, and he's going to be talking with us on Wednesday the 30th at 5:30, going over all things home inspection. So looking forward to that. We also are going to have a Georgia in-person event, Lunch and Learn. This is going to be with the company Thumbtack on May the 1st at 1 o'clock at Gabe's. Gabe's in Villa Rica. They didn't put the name here, but that's the street address for it. This is a free lunch, a good time to learn about Thumbtack and give some maybe, advice, get some advice from agents, get some information from our colleagues at Thumbtack. My brain is not working today, sorry. And it'll be a really good time. So I encourage y'all to join if you can. Here are our April brand kit templates. And like I always share, you can click these and just switch out your photo, put in information. It's a good template for you to have to share on social media, email, whatever you like to use. And we do these new every single month. Our March top producers. And as always, check out Zach's YouTube channel. And if you have questions about dot loop or compliance, I go over a lot of things, dot loop and compliance in these trainings. But if you have further questions and want to hear it directly from Zach or directly from Cameron, then we have a playlist you can watch through all of our training videos. And then in Thinkific, we have all kinds of trainings on there recorded for our agents. You have access to anything past, present, future by being a part of our brokerage. So just click that link that you have in your email from this April brand kit that was sent to you, and you can open that up. All right, let's get started with our training for this evening. And we're going to be talking about the top negotiations in a real estate transaction. Sorry, let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb because it is blowing up. All right, so negotiations are definitely a part of every single real estate transaction, and that is part of the reason that our clients hire us, and part of the reason that we get paid is to be able to be professionals when it comes to negotiation and essentially win when it comes to negotiation. So tonight we're going to discuss commonly negotiated items in a real estate transaction. Of course, my hope is that being familiar with these terms and preparing yourself ahead of time is going to help you gain confidence when negotiating on behalf of your clients. Our goal is always to get to the closing table while looking out for the best interest of our clients. We both win when our clients win in negotiations. So we at times have to negotiate on behalf of our clients, but if we are good and win at negotiations, then essentially it's a win-win because we get to the closing table. Our clients are happy, we're happy because we get paid at closing, and it's just a win-win all around. You set yourself up as the expert in negotiations, so it's definitely something that I feel is beneficial to go ahead and be thinking about ahead of time before you're even in a contract, and get very familiar with negotiation strategies, tactics, and knowing the items to negotiate. That way you can get the best deal for your client if you're a buyer, and then also profit the most amount of money for your client if you're working with a seller. So number one, first, most obvious negotiation point is going to be the purchase price. And this involves, of course, the agreed upon amount the buyer is going to pay for a property. And I would just have a little just a little snippet to add on purchase price. You want to think beyond the just the price that is on the contract, and you want to think to the net that the seller is going to net if you're working with a seller, or again, the net if you are working with a buyer of what they're actually going to have to pay. So you kind of think beyond that purchase price. That is important, of course, but think beyond that purchase price and try to find ways around, um, you know, getting the most money, of course, for your seller, and then getting the best price, of course, for your buyer. There can be ways that you can negotiate this and ways that you can look out for your client's best interest, of course. Number two, commonly negotiated item is going to be the closing cost. When we do this, we negotiate who will cover certain closing costs, such as the title insurance, attorney's fees, and transfer taxes. Keep in mind that when we are talking about closing costs, especially in Georgia, these are all lump sum together. So on your contract, you're going to have a purchase price, and then you're going to have a seller paid closing cost amount. In, post-COVID 2021, 2022, that seller paid closing cost number was always, I would say 90 to 95% of the time, it was $0. So buyers were willing to pay all of their closing costs, all of the title insurance, attorney fees, transfer taxes, all of those things. Now we're into a more balanced market in 2025. So there are definitely times where somebody's going to offer maybe the asking price or even a little higher than asking price, but then also ask the seller to pay some of their closing cost. This is essentially going to save them money out of pocket, and it definitely is a negotiation now. I would definitely recommend that if you are working with a buyer and you're considering trying to negotiate closing costs for your buyer, maybe just talk to the listing agent, feel them out. I know I've said this a bunch of times, but when you're calling them to try to discuss your offer, figure out what terms are going to work best for the seller, and what's actually going to win the offer for your buyer. Talk about closing cost. Ask if the seller would be willing to pay closing cost, if y'all could get, if they could get asking price or even a little above asking price, and figure out what's going to be, the best for your buyer or seller, whoever you're representing. But again, these are just estimates. I do want to make y'all aware of that. These are estimates. So most of these things are going to be prorated based on what day you close. So you can't really give an exact price of what closing costs will be. Now, if you talk to the attorney, if you talk to your client's lender, if you're representing a buyer, they are able to give like an estimated fee sheet or estimated closing cost sheet, just to go over their fees and then what they think the attorney is going to charge. So you can get estimates, but again, they are estimates. You won't know exactly. So make sure that you disclose that to your client when you're working with them. Like, this is an average or an estimate of what closing costs should be or could be, but this is going to vary based on what day we close. If anything comes up, there's any weird fees or prorated fees that, we have to accommodate for, these could slightly change. So again, this is a negotiation, and it is something to go ahead and be thinking about, and doing as much due diligence ahead of time as possible when you're working with a buyer or a seller on that. Number three, commonly negotiated items, financing terms. This is negotiating the terms of the buyer's mortgage, including mortgage rates, loan duration, and down payment. And I have a couple notes on this. If you are representing the seller, I recommend you don't try to negotiate too much on this, because this really affects the buyer and what they're paying with their loan and with their the terms of their loan. So unless you're doing some kind of a seller financing, I really wouldn't recommend you kind of get into their business as far as what interest rate they're paying, or how long they're financing their loan, how much they're putting down. Now, I will say on the seller side, if they are putting 20% down, 40% down, or even more, then that solidifies that you've got somebody making an offer on your listing that has quite a bit of cash. So that's good to keep in the back of your mind in case you have any issues with appraisal, or sometimes the appraisal can get waived if someone is putting more than 20% down. So that is definitely a plus. But again, I wouldn't get into their business too much trying to negotiate with them on the terms of their mortgage if you're representing the seller. Now, if you are representing the buyer, then I do recommend that you talk with your buyer before you make offers and help them negotiate with lenders. This is definitely something that you as an agent can help with. Give them recommended lenders, and I never recommend that a buyer talk to just one lender. I recommend they talk to at least three or four, because you can essentially negotiate with each of those lenders on their customer service and figure out, who's going to be the best fit for you, who's going to be the most trustworthy lender, because that is a big deal when it comes to who's helping you with a loan. And even sometimes they have different incentives that one company can offer and another cannot. They have down payment assistance. There's so many programs that they have to try to incentivize buyers. So I definitely recommend that you talk with lenders, negotiate with them, try to get the best deal for your client, and help your buyer if they are before they are making offers on homes, if they're kind of talking with different lenders, help them kind of understand, what goes into getting a mortgage, what terms they can negotiate when it comes to a mortgage. There are some things like interest rate that we may not always be able to negotiate. But I have found that there are times when I've talked to a lender, they tell me that, I qualify for a 4% rate. And then I talk to another lender and they say 5%. So again, all of this can be negotiated on. But just as I said before, if you're on the list side, the seller side, I wouldn't recommend you try to get in the business of a buyer and try to negotiate any of their financing terms. Number four, home repairs. We're going to be negotiating repairs or concessions for needed repairs after a home inspection. And this is typically during the due diligence, as we call it in Georgia, or inspection period, as y'all call it in Tennessee. But we can negotiate anything with home repairs up until the day of closing. I just had recently a closing. This has probably been a month or so now, where we had a ton of rain the couple days before the closing. And during the final walkthrough, the buyer noticed, I was representing the seller, buyer noticed a roof leak. And the day of closing, they negotiated with us to try to get that roof leak repaired. Thankfully, we did an escrow holdback. My seller still got to close that day. Buyer still got to close and take possession. But we just left about $1,500 in escrow held back so that we could get that repair fixed. So just know that even if you're through your due diligence or your inspection period, doesn't mean that you have to accept the home as is. Negotiations for repairs and things like that can happen up until closing. Now, you don't want to be the annoying agent that asks for something different every single day, because the sellers will get tired of that and frustrated and probably start saying no. But if something does come up, especially something that's changed since your client saw the house during their initial showing, then you definitely can negotiate again up until the day of closing. And just a little tip for me, the buyer is the one that pays for the home inspection. So let it be up to you, or let it be up to them if you share the home inspection or not. Now, it is good for negotiation that you share the home inspection, especially if you're asking for home repairs or credits for, something that needs to be repaired in the home, just so you have proof and a professional backup opinion on something that actually is going on in the home. So I definitely recommend it if you're asking for specific repairs, for you to be able to share the home inspection showing those needed repairs. But again, let it be up to the buyer, who is the one that paid for the home inspection, whether or not you share that with the seller or with the listing agent. Five, on commonly negotiated items, contingencies. We're going to negotiate the inclusion or removal of contingencies. These can be things like financing, inspection, or home sale, and this can affect the flexibility of the deal. And I wrote down a couple other contingencies that I've seen in contracts. And we've got home sale, financing, appraisal. I think all of these are here. Financing, inspection, home sale. And when I say home sale contingency, that means that the buyer has to sell their home in order to purchase the new home that they're making an offer on. And we also can make specific things contingent in the contract in the special stipulation section if you live in Georgia. Specific things like verifying acreage. If you are making an offer on a client that's purchasing land, there's been a couple times recently that I've put in our special stipulations. This offer is contingent on the property being, verified as at least X amount of acres or whatever it may be. That way, if the property is not the amount of acreage after we get a survey, if it's not the amount of acreage that was advertised at the beginning or when we went under contract, then we're able to back out of the contract and regain our earnest money. Specific things like that. If you want the home sale to be contingent on a past septic inspection, if you need the home to be contingent on a clear termite inspection, any of these things you can definitely put into the offer. The more contingencies that you put, the more complicated it's going to get for the seller. So if you're representing a buyer, I would try to choose maybe the most important things versus every little thing. But just to let you know, you still can't ask for things like a septic inspection, termite letter, all of that. I think I've shared this, but something that I saw recently on contingencies that I haven't seen in the past couple years is a buyer made an offer contingent on being able to obtain homeowners insurance on a property. And this is because they were nervous because of the age of the roof that they wouldn't be able to get homeowners insurance. So just keep that in mind as well. You are able to negotiate anything like that. You're able to negotiate the closing date. This can be negotiated to accommodate both the schedules of each party or the lenders and attorneys. Keep in mind that closing dates are, tentative. They can change based on if the attorney's out of town, the date that you proposed, you may have to change it. If the lender can't get their file clear to close on time or CD sent out on time, you may have to change closing date. So make sure as an agent you set your expectations up correctly for your buyer or seller to know that closing dates are tentative and we don't really know for sure if we're going to be closing on that date or not, usually until the week of, sometimes even a couple days before. So just keep that in mind. And I also wanted to make a note that if you're representing a buyer or seller, and I just wanted to remind y'all, you do have an 8-day unilateral extension to closing. If anything comes up where the lender or the attorney can't satisfy the closing date on time, you do have a right without the seller or buyer's permission to unilaterally extend the closing if it's something that's out of your control. Number 7, on negotiations, exclusions and inclusions and exclusions. So we can negotiate what items will be included or excluded from the sale. This can be things such as appliances and furniture. And I would definitely recommend that you reference the seller's property disclosure if you're wanting to know what the seller is planning to leave or take with them. And if you have something different that your buyer or seller wants left or taken, then you definitely need to write that into the contract. Don't take anybody's word that they're going to leave something or take something. Definitely put it in writing so that you can cover your client. Number 8, a home warranty. This is negotiating whether the seller will provide a home warranty covering repairs or replacements for a specific period after closing. And also have a little asterisk here. You also may need to put in a dollar amount of what this will cost and who is paying for it. I had a situation recently where I was selling a new construction home, and the buyer wanted a new construction warranty, home warranty. My builder, he does not do this like as a full-time thing, so he doesn't have the typical builder's warranties that everybody else, like a bigger company builder would offer. So he agreed to this, not realizing that a new build warranty cost a lot more than what a typical home warranty would cost, which doesn't make sense to me because everything's brand new. But regardless, he had to pay about $1,500 for the warranty versus about $500 to $600 for a typical warranty. So just keep in mind on that. If somebody asks for a home warranty, you may want to verify if you're representing the seller of exactly what it will cost them, or let there be a max amount on that. If you're representing the buyer, you may want to put a max amount just so you can cover yourself to make sure they're not getting the cheapest of the cheap type warranty. There's a lot of different kinds of warranties. I'm just learning this. Nine, occupancy. This is negotiating the terms of occupancy, especially if the buyer needs to move in prior to closing. This is something that just me personally, I think is very risky for a buyer to take possession of a home before they actually close on it. But it can be helpful if there's ever an emergency situation. I'm trying to think back, but I don't think there has been time we've let a buyer like put their personal items in the garage or something when we've had to extend closing. But I don't think I've ever let a buyer move into a house prior to closing, and I'm going to try to keep it that way because that can be very scary. But this is something that you can negotiate if you are representing a buyer or seller, is, the occupancy time. Personal property, negotiating the specific furniture or personal property that will be included in the sale. And a little note here, pay attention during the showing to see what your buyers like. If you're representing buyers, if they're like, oh my gosh, we love this couch, you could negotiate into your contract for that to be included with the sale. It may save the seller time and energy and effort in moving it out, and it may save the buyer time and energy in finding a similar couch. It may be a win-win for everyone. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to negotiate personal property, I would put it into the contract. If you do not include it in special stipulations of the contract, then do a separate bill of sale. And GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, has a bill of sale form where you can put specific personal property and a dollar amount if they're being charged for it. If they're not, you can leave it zero. But this is definitely something that we can negotiate on behalf of our clients to try to help seal the deal on certain things or make everybody's life just a little easier. 11, earnest money deposit. This is when we can negotiate the amount of the deposit, how it will be given, how quickly to turn it in, who is holding, and on which conditions it will be forfeited. Just as a refresher, earnest money, at least in our area, is usually about 1% of the purchase price. You know, of course, if you do more earnest money, it's better for the seller if there's ever a discrepancy and they're trying to recoup that earnest money. If you do more earnest money, better for the seller. Less earnest money is better for the buyer. That way, if you have to forfeit your earnest money as a buyer, then it's less, of course. So that's for you, the agent, to know who you're representing. And I would just say the normal amount is about 1% of the purchase price. But if you're representing seller or buyer, this is definitely something that is negotiable. I've seen like $40,000 and $50,000 in earnest money given in one contract, just to show how serious someone was. But again, it just depends on which party you're representing and how capable they are and how much earnest money they have to give also. 12, appraisal contingency. This is negotiating how discrepancies between the appraised value and the purchase price will be handled. And I just will let y'all know, I've had several deals fall apart because a house didn't appraise for the purchase price, especially going back a couple years. Um, I just want to make y'all aware that if you're on the list side, keep in mind that the house is going to have to appraise unless you get the unicorn cash buyer that's going to come pay your full list price. So then when you are going to list a house, you want to make sure that you've got great comps to support your listing price. That way that if an appraisal comes in low, you at least have some ammunition to like back up where your appraisal value and where your list value was at. But ultimately, the appraiser is the one that determines the appraisal value, which is crazy to me, but it is what it is. So just, be forewarned that if you're listing a house and it appraises low, you're going to have to do some negotiations on this to try to get this deal moving along. Buyer may have to come forth with some more cash to make the deal work. Seller may have to drop the price some, maybe a combination of both. Some agents may have to give up some compensation to try to make it work. Just know, everything's a negotiation and it's unfortunate, but there are definitely times when an appraisal comes in low and we have to scramble and make it work for everyone. 13, seller concessions. This is where we negotiate where the seller agrees to pay a certain amount towards the buyer's closing cost in lieu of something else. This is different in Tennessee and Georgia. In Georgia, closing costs are just a chunk, like a specific amount, or I'm sorry, a specific dollar amount that covers, all of those things, the taxes, the prorated fees, the attorney fees, the lender fees. In Tennessee, they have closing costs and then they have title fees. So in Tennessee and Georgia, you're going to see things that are a little different with this, but I will say that, that seller concessions is essentially the credit towards closing costs. This could be in lieu of a repair. It could be, sorry, I didn't get the termite letter. Can I give you $1,000 instead, or whatever it may be. Everybody has to agree, of course, on this, but we do want to get this, of course, in writing as well. 14, escrow period. And again, this is different in Georgia and Tennessee. In Tennessee, it's the escrow period. Georgia, we call this like our under contract period. This is the time when the house is under contract, but the sellers haven't gotten their money yet. So negotiating the length of this and allowing additional time if needed. And essentially in Georgia, this is the time where they say, hey, we're going to close by this date. If we're given like a 3-week period until closing, then that's good. Of course, the shorter the better for the seller, as long as they are able to get out of their house on time. And the longer that things are under contract or in escrow, may be better for the buyer because they can kind of get more funds together, have more time to get their loan together, all of those things. So everything's a negotiation, as y'all see. Rent back agreement. This can be negotiating a rent back agreement if the seller needs more time in the property at closing. We call this commonly in our area temporary occupancy, and GAR has a specific form for this for temporary occupancy. If you do a temporary occupancy for seller, then you definitely want to make sure that you have this agreement filled out. That way, if, X party doesn't get out by a certain date, how much do they pay the other party that's now the owner of the house? What, are the utilities going to stay in the seller or buyer's name? We've got to know all of those things. So instead of just writing a special stipulations for a temporary occupancy, I would definitely recommend you use that form so that you can dot all your I's, cross all your T's with that. But again, this can be something that is negotiated and it can be beneficial. I know right now I've got a listing and we just went on the market and the sellers are planning to move out of state, but they are not planning to move until their kids finish school, which would be the end of May. So I've got a note in their listing that if we need to close before end of May, the sellers want to stay in the house, at least to get their kids through school. So, it is what it is. Sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't, but again, it can be negotiated if needed. Landscaping or outdoor furniture. I'm sorry, this should say outdoor features. Negotiating the condition of the landscaping or outdoor features and who is responsible for the maintenance of these things. These can be things like roads to the house, fences, HOA maintained items, etc. You can negotiate, who takes care of what, if things need to be fixed, negotiate with the neighbors or whatever it may be, to make sure that your buyer or seller is happy. 17, home insurance. Negotiating who will pay for homeowners insurance during the contract period. And here's a little tip from me. Buyers should not be paying for anything for a house that they don't own before closing. That's, up to you on what you want to do. That's just me personally. I'm not letting my buyers pay for any homeowners insurance before they actually own the home. 18, association fees. This is negotiating the payment of HOA fees and any outstanding dues. I've got a house that I purchased, or I had a house, I've sold it now, but had a house that I purchased a couple years ago, and the seller did not tell me that they owed several $1,000s in HOA fees, or maybe they hinted at it but didn't tell me how much. Regardless, you definitely can negotiate who is paying for, outstanding dues on HOA fees. You can also negotiate who is paying the initiation fees, if there are any special assessment fees, anything like that. And this majority of the time will be done on that community association disclosure form. If you're on the seller side, if you're on the buyer side, of course, you can put that into your special stipulations in the contract if you want the seller to pay for specific fees, transfer fees, initiation fees, etc. Survey costs, 19, negotiating who will cover the cost of a survey if it's required. And this is mainly going to be on land contracts where you're going to get a survey. You definitely can recommend your buyers or sellers get a survey done on a home that maybe you have some disputing property lines or encroachments or easement issues. But we need to negotiate who's going to cover the cost of that if it's required. 20, upgrades or replacements. This is negotiating upgrades or replacements for appliances or updates that are desired within a home. Just a little tip from me. Just like how it's risky for the buyer to pay for homeowners insurance before they own the home, I think it's very risky for sellers to pay for anything that would be an upgrade for a buyer prior to closing. Now, repairs are one thing because that is something that maybe would be beneficial to any other buyer if you're the seller paying for a repair. But if a seller is going to pay for an upgrade on something or change paint color, or, I had a seller client a couple months ago that they built a house, and the buyer came in. We didn't actually end up accepting this offer, thank goodness. But the buyer came in, and in the offer, they wanted the seller to replace several sinks in the house. They wanted additional water spigots added to the exterior of the house. They wanted certain trees removed, certain trees added. There were so many little nitpicky things that, in my opinion, were considered upgrades and not necessarily like mandatory repairs or safety requirement type things. So it's very risky for my seller to pay for any upgrades or any things like that prior to selling the house, because that buyer, could ask for $20,000-$30,000 worth of upgrades in the house, then the day of closing back out. So just, keep in mind that this is a negotiation, but I'm never going to recommend my seller do any kind of upgrades or pay for anything like this prior to closing if he's not going to get his money back. He or she, I guess. Okay, that is all of our commonly negotiated items. I do have a little bit of homework for our agents. If you would like to further your negotiation tactics and get better at negotiation, which I highly recommend, we use negotiations every day in this business. So, homework number one, Zach has some great videos on YouTube regarding negotiations. I recommend that you go to YouTube tonight, tomorrow, this week, put a reminder in your phone and just Google Zach Taylor real estate negotiations, and several videos will come up. He's got some great tips and tricks on there for our agents regarding setting yourself up as the expert when it comes to negotiations. I would also recommend that y'all listen or read. When I say listen, like audiobook, podcast style, listen to at least one book on negotiations. I have read both of these books and they're both really, really good. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and then Getting Past No by William. It's actually not Dry. I think it's Dury, Druy, maybe his last name, but Getting Past No, if you Google that, it will come up. Both of those are excellent books regarding negotiation, and it's going to help both of these books would help you in things past just real estate. It's going to help you in your everyday life. We deal with negotiations all of the time, negotiating with your kids, no, negotiating with your spouse. If you want to get your way, be very good at negotiation. So I recommend you watch Zach's video and then also, or videos, and then also at least read one of these books. They're both excellent books. If you have time, put them on your to-do list and try to listen or read both of these as well. Does anybody have any questions before I let y'all go this evening? Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to let y'all go. I appreciate all of y'all being on tonight. If you have any questions, as always, email, call, text me anytime. I'm happy to help, and I want to see our agents succeed. Thank y'all so much for being on, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.